Hello and welcome to Everyday Conversations with Amin Mombani. And today's guest, he has three different things living in his world. He is a podcast host for Bitcoin and Blockchain DXB, a drummer. Let's speak to him later on that which kind of drumming he is into. Also an OCR athlete. I met him in 2019 in Spartan workout tour. The energy was full on because that was my first time doing that kind of race. And then I met this guy, born and brought up in Mumbai, and then craving his own path here in Dubai. Let's speak to him and know more about him. Welcome to Everyday Conversations. Welcome, George.
Thank you so much, Amin, for having me. And more than anything, I think you're one of the closest friends that I ever have had. So it's great to have a conversation with you in a formal settings, isn't it?
Sir, sometimes this has to be done that the podcast host is sitting across to me and I am the one who is asking questions with him.
Yep, indeed.
So, how was your day today? Dubai heat, summer. Training drumming sessions or just doing some research on Bitcoin?
So I did go to the gym twice. I did a bit of my drumming and a bit of meditation also, which I'd love to talk about, which I do quite often. And even few minutes before getting live, we were supposed to do it at 7:30, but I said, let's do it at 8. But before that, I did a bit of meditation. And that's something which I tend to do even before obstacle course race, when I record my podcast, and even before doing my drums. So really curious to talk about that as well.
That's great. So, before Bitcoin, before drumming, before OCR, who was George? What he has done before?
Before that, I used to work in India. I used to work in an outsourcing company. And after that, I used to listen to heavy metal. I mean, according to me, look, the first thing is death metal or heavy metal music. Second passion for me is Bitcoin. The third one is obstacle course racing, in that order. And now we do obstacle course racing quite often. But before that, I used to work, in an outsourcing company. Then I tried to move to Manchester to do my master's. So I was working there as well, and that's where I got introduced to Bitcoin. So fast forward to 2026, you can see I'm kind of like the OG in the space. Only a Bitcoin, if we get time, we'll try to get into that. I do have a podcast as well with 1,234 episodes. And we used to also do a podcast together before that, isn't it? Which was focused on obstacle course race, the race-based podcast. And now I'm extremely passionate about playing drums. So let's see how 2026 or what 2026 rather has in store for us.
I used to remember that whenever we met, whenever we talk, you used to tell me about drumming that come and let's go to a drum session, enjoy over there, just stay there and see how it's going on. So definitely I will ask you some questions on that as well. But as you spoke something that your three kinds of passion, so that's what my something immediately came in my mind that some people find one thing as a proper passion. Some people find two things. So, George, as you just said right now, three passions of yours living inside you. But as far as I know you, in these three, you are also deep diving more. Like if you are talking about your Bitcoin and blockchain. So, in those things, also, you are a Bitcoin educator. I think blockchain educator, right?
The technology on which Bitcoin works, that is called as blockchain technology. So you can make an argument. This
So
blockchain,
you are
yeah,
into that as well.
yeah.
In drumming, you have done that drumming in Manchester, in England, I think so, and you have worked and you have played drum for some big names as well, which you will spill out later on. And then again in OCR, you are into hybrid, you are into Deka, you are into Hyrox, you are into Spartan, you are into Tough Mudder. So people can't handle one passion, two passions, and you are into three passions. How are you doing all these things?
Firstly, I think for me, I have got a good understanding between passion versus what I'm good at. Now, what I'm good at is, planning things and podcasting. Now, podcasting isn't a passion. It's, we're on a living. So this is where Bitcoin blockchain technology kicks in. That's not a passion. That is something, which is part of what I have to do. The second passion is, probably about passion. The first passion is probably listening to death metal music or playing drums. But am I good at it? I really am not sure. So I think what people tend to think is, do you follow your passion or do you follow what you're good at? Some people spend a lifetime identifying what that is. A classic example, I'm sure you've heard of Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is one of the greatest UFC fighters. He hates fighting. His actual passion is to play football, but he's not good at it. He's often said that, his number one passion is actually to play football, but he's identified what he's good at it. So going back to what we are discussing, I think I made a distinction in identifying what I'm good at, which is, planning, getting the notes right. And I do have a podcast. That's where I focus a lot of the time in. Now the passion comes about, drumming. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm good at, but it is more of a passion. And the same thing regarding obstacle course race. I mean, we have run so many races together, and I'm not sure if I should say this, but I've never given more than 40% because if you know, I always carry a GoPro and I'm always smiling most of the time. So I'm doing obstacle course race only for passion, just more of a work life balance. And it is easy to make that separation as long as you identify what you're good at versus what your passion is. I think things gets a bit easier.
Let me tell my listeners about you something, that he's the guy who is famous in the entire fitness and running industry in Dubai, or I can say in Middle East, with the name of the guy who is running with a GoPro. Was that intentional to have a name like GoPro Runner, or something you loved it?
Now, I'm so glad you asked this, and I'm just thinking of this off the spot. Someone else also keeps asking me, why do you use GoPro? And the fact is, look, I mean, me, I've gone born and brought up in Mumbai. The lifestyle wasn't that great at all. We were literally living in the slums of Mumbai. So now, when I see obstacle course race, I just want to capture these moments. That's one of the reasons why I use GoPro, not for anyone else, just for myself. So, just go and record and capture these moments. Because all of these things are relatively new for us, because back home we don't have these things, isn't it? For me, Mumbai, I think our listeners should check out the place where I lived at. It is literally the slums of Mumbai. So for us, having access to seeing all these obstacle course races like Spartan Race or, Tough Mudder, which I'm extremely passionate about. And that's one of the reasons why I actually use the GoPro and record the shit out of it.
I used to remember whenever I am somewhere ahead you or behind you in the race, and some of our mutuals come and they ask me, "Hey, where is that GoPro guy? Where is that GoPro guy?" So I was like, "Wow, he has rebranded him as a GoPro person." I was like, "That's interesting."
Hmm. And, just being able to capture these moments. And it is a bit iconic, especially when you do Tough Mudder or Spartan Race. And I think I'm the only guy who actually, while doing the obstacles, I'm still trying to capture these moments, isn't it? Particularly when you do Block Ness Monster, the obstacle in Tough Mud, or doing some weird Spartan obstacles. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I do it. I mean,
That's good. Definitely, if I recall something, that my first Spartan race was with you, and just within 3 days, I think first race was on Friday, and just after 3 days, you give me a call and you told me that, "Hey, bro, you want to do Desert Warrior? It's just 10K.
yeah,
I have already signed you up." I was like, "Okay." And after Desert Warrior, you signed me up for Tough Mudder. So I think 3 weeks, 3 Fridays, and 3 races I did it. And I don't know from where I did, how I did, but I did it. I think so. That was the first ever I came out of that comfort zone to go out in the mud, do that run, do that obstacles, pick that heavy shits, and smile in front of the camera and finish that thing. And just asked, when is the next race again?
and I'm so glad you said Friday because back then we used to have Friday as a weekly off, isn't it? Now we have Saturday, Sunday. So back in the day, we used to have Friday and Saturday off. So I think all the events used to happen on Fridays, right? That time.
That was the amazing thing because I have uh, Friday was off and then
Yeah.
Sunday. Yeah, so it was something different and something amazing that time. George, you mentioned that you have a podcast. It's all
Hmm.
about Bitcoin and blockchain, right?
Correct.
What made you
I'm so
start it?
glad. Firstly, I'm so glad you said Bitcoin and blockchain because a lot of them, think that Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrency, everything is the same. So I think it's so nice that you're saying that it is Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and then you have stable coins. All four, according to me, are completely different. Now, you asked why did I start it? Because the answer to that is pretty simple. When I was getting into Bitcoin, it was extremely tough to understand the concepts. So I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, which I still do, by the way. I listen to at least 3 to 4 hours of podcasts every day. When I listened to that, first I used to get inspired Then later on, I started to find out that some of the things that you're saying is not right. There are a lot of CEOs and CTOs and founders. They're just trying to pitch their product. And I had to think what they're saying is not necessarily true. And that's actually the main reason why I've started doing the podcast. And it is only an educational podcast. So listeners can check it out. It is called as Blockchain DXB. It has got 1,340 episodes as of today. So what started me is just to educate people with the right information, getting the information correct. And I mean, we also did a podcast where we talked about, the recent Iran and US conflict, where we stressed it is not important to get a lot of information, rather, it is important to look at official sources. So, right now, people are looking at 10 or 12 different sources, but all of these sources could be wrong. Rather, go to look at official sources, and you'd be surprised. The information put out is 70 to 80% different. In the cryptocurrency space, it's often 90 to 95% different. And that's one of the reasons why I did actually start my podcast.
That's great. And I remember listening to podcasts when I am in the gym. I got this habit from you. Now every day I am not listening to music in the gym. Since last 4 years, I'm just listening to podcasts in the gym. And definitely about your podcast, Bitcoin and blockchain, I'll put the details in the show notes because I always, when I'm on Podbean and Spotify, I go through your podcast titles. Sometimes the titles are so interesting because, of course, your podcast is totally for the people who are interested in crypto, Bitcoin, blockchain. And
Yeah.
somehow politics are also there.
Lately, yes.
So that's why, yeah. So whenever there's something which is going through my eyes on social media, and everything on social media is not true, not fact, which also I learned from you. Because whenever I come to tell you, and George, this happened, and you were the first person, okay, from where did you got this news?
Fake news.
Okay, that's okay. You are saying it, okay, I can believe it, but the source is not correct. So that's what I'm telling the people now. If someone is coming to me and telling me, hey, this happened, I was like, did this really happen? So that changed my perception of following the news. That changed my perception of accepting what exactly is happening in surroundings. And
Yeah.
that really is good thing, believing in all those fake things is better than trusting on few.
Yeah, especially with media. I mean, what a lot of people want to do is they want to get it first as opposed to get it right. Mainstream media on whichever side of politics you follow, they want to be first as opposed to be right. And it is pretty simple. It isn't that hard. And as you know, I mean, I don't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I only work Monday to Thursdays. But just in that 4 days, I think I get much more than what other podcasters in the Bitcoin and blockchain space tend to cover. The reason is pretty simple. They all do a lot of the work. I see one of a good friend of mine who I used to go live with via LinkedIn. He works Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and he's always lagging behind with what is going on currently in the space. So I think it is important to understand to have a bit of time to ensure that you have a work-life balance, a bit of break from everything that we do in our day-to-day working life.
George, one thing about you I need to tell to listener that you are a very convincing person. You can easily convince people. I have noticed that in you. So one thing I want to ask that Bitcoin,
Yeah,
people have a thought about Bitcoin that which immediately switch them off. It's like Bitcoin is
correct.
risky, it's complicated, it's too complicated, it's too much
Yeah,
risky, or whether it's too late to invest in Bitcoin. Because I remember when Bitcoin was around $100 something or $10 something, you told me to buy Bitcoin. 20s, I don't know, I don't the exact year. And I was like, no, 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 it's too risky, it's too complicated. And I didn't do that. And when I see now the price of Bitcoin surging up, down, and I was like, okay, I did a mistake or I don't know what. So, what do you say to that person who thinks that it's too late to invest in Bitcoin right now?
firstly, I wouldn't tell anyone to invest in Bitcoin. I would tell them to understand what Bitcoin is. Let me put you on the spot. I mean, how would you define Bitcoin? What is your definition of Bitcoin? You said that it is scam. A lot of people still think of it as scam. So let me put you on the spot. What is your definition of Bitcoin? How would you define
I
Bitcoin?
don't, in my first episode of podcast show, Everyday Conversations, I told to my mentor, Samir GP, also the same thing. I was like, it's very bad to bring a host who is a podcast host. because I don't want to give the answers.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So if you ask me about Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin? I can just say Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency which is very much in the market, and there is a price fluctuating everywhere, up and down, and people are using crypto as in trades also right now. That's all I know, because I have to sit with you for this. I am always telling you, and excuses are there that okay, we will sit. But yes, I want to know about Bitcoin.
I think what you said is exactly what the general understanding of Bitcoin is, isn't it? And my role is just to explain to people what Bitcoin is. Forget or park the price of Bitcoin separately. According to me, Bitcoin, I mean, is the purest form of money. So when you talk about money, we talk about the RAM or dollar that is called as fiat currency. It is always the government who are responsible for it. So according to me, if you ask what Bitcoin is, the answer is pretty simple. It's the purest form of money. And luckily enough, Dubai, UAE, and the Middle East, they are leading the front in Bitcoin. And I think our listeners should know that the first cryptocurrency exchange in the world was also in Dubai. Not a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space also know that. So, as long as people understand that Bitcoin is the purest form of money, what my role in the podcast is just to go out and explain it to them how the technology works, why the prices go high, why it actually goes down. I wouldn't recommend people to invest in Bitcoin, rather try to understand what Bitcoin is. And that is essentially what my podcast is all about. That is the key theme of the podcast.
So if someone wants, like, people are not thinking about Bitcoin before, but now they are thinking about Bitcoin,
Yeah,
what will you say in one sentence to them?
understand Bitcoin, just two words, understand Bitcoin. And I'll even go ahead and say something which a lot of people who are in the cryptocurrency space may not like it. I think the narrative should be Bitcoin, not cryptocurrency. Because Bitcoin is something completely different and cryptocurrency is something different. As a matter of fact, I mean, it'd be great if you put my LinkedIn ID in the show notes as well. In my LinkedIn ID, it actually states Bitcoin, not cryptocurrency. And if anyone needs a proper explanation, I'd love to go ahead and explain, how cryptocurrency is different to Bitcoin. And this goes back to what we talked about earlier. I mean, a lot of media, they talk about the price, they talk about what Bitcoin is, the different scams. So having a lot of information need not necessarily be right, but getting information from official sources will make people understand what Bitcoin is. And my role in my podcast is, as long as a 5-year-old can understand what Bitcoin is and an 80-year-old can understand what Bitcoin is, I think I've done my part. So at home, what I tend to do is, my dad who's 80 years old, I try to explain it to him. At the same time, when my niece was younger, I should explain it to her. And as long as both of these people understand, my job is done. And I only talk about how it actually works. And it's pretty simple, to be completely honest.
When I ask you that, I will ask you some questions to make it out. So you told me that you want to speak on Bitcoin and politics,
Yes.
and you will be honestly speaking your and honestly giving your take on this.
Yeah.
So let's go there now. How Bitcoin and politics are connected? What is the connection, and how does it matter to everyday life of the ordinary people?
I'm so glad you asked that, Amin. And one of the visions of why Bitcoin was created was separation of money in the state. By state, you mean the government and the country. So Bitcoin was created so that the government or the state cannot have access to people's money. It is written in code. Now we have politics, particularly President Donald Trump, who wants to make Bitcoin great again, along with the United States of America great again. And if you truly understand what is going on regarding politics and connection of Bitcoin, I think there is a lot of connection because it was started so that governments and the state does not have control over the money. Rather, it is written in code. It's not there yet. Maybe in 2 or 3 decades, there might be a time where money works purely on code, and there is no government involvement in that.
So if someone, like, people are listening right now to our show, and if they wanted to take one action
Mhm.
to understand Bitcoin, just to understand.
Subscribe to the Blockchain DXB podcast and give it a 5-star rating. Just kidding. That was like my script, isn't it?
No, I no, actually my question relates to that thing,
Mhm.
because you are teaching people about Bitcoin and blockchain, what and making them understand exactly what Bitcoin, blockchain and crypto is, and
Yeah.
how it's related to politics, and how or what time you need to go into it or you need to take out. So how can you make them understand, not speculate, just to make them understand what what should be the first step for them?
First step for everyone is try to understand what Bitcoin is and separate Bitcoin from cryptocurrencies because there are over 23,000 different types of cryptocurrencies. So try to understand what Bitcoin is. Forget about the price. The second advice is forget about the price of Bitcoin. Try to understand how the technology works. And then, to be honest, in just a matter of 2 days, you can be a champ in understanding what Bitcoin is. So for firstly, focus only on Bitcoin, forget about other cryptocurrencies. Secondly, ignore the price. I know it is tough to say that, but go ahead and ignore the price. And I have another platform called Bitcoin DXB.org, which is catered to high net worth individuals, politicians, lawyers, educational institutes. You can also check out that website. All of the information regarding that is completely free of cost. So as long as you understand it, and thirdly is listen to my podcast. You can listen to it, understand what it is. And in my podcast, I've never ever said our listeners to go out and buy it. I just give an indication as to when the prices could pump up or it could go down. But as long as you listen to the podcast, it is slightly technical because my podcast is catered to people who are already in the space. Erasing a lot of the unnecessary fluff that is going on in the space. So slightly technical.
But I'm happy somewhere over here on the podcast show right now that Bitcoin and blockchain, you are not using those jargons actually right now.
Yeah.
You're making people understand in very simply words, very simple language. Because usually when I listen to, thanks to you, that you asked me to listen to that, listen to that, listen to that, and when I was listening to them, I trust me, I could not understand any single thing because they were using so technical terms, the jargons and all that. And it's good that sitting with you and listening to you, people will know exactly the simplest word what Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is actually.
Yep. Yep.
George, drum beats. It's always on your mind. Always your feet is moving towards that. Even when I'm running, you are asking me to download this sound banner so you can put on the beats and 4 beats and 3 beats and 2 beats. What is that? Let's talk
So
about drumming right now.
So the music that I'm passionate about is heavy metal, and in heavy metal you have a subgenre called as death metal, which is extremely tough, and there's a very strong correlation. Between death metal, Bitcoin, as well as Spartan Race. If you look at it, all of these things are extreme, but not in a bad way. Even the genre. If you see some of the guys who listen to death metal, they are one of the loveliest of people. So, it is extremely fast. There's a very strong correlation between all three of them. All of these things are extreme, but in a nice way, and you get a different buzz out of it. So there are different genres. You have heavy metal, you have thrash metal. The one which I like is death metal, and I play for two bands in Dubai. Hopefully, we might be having a gig pretty soon. I would love to say the name of the band, but unfortunately, the name is a bit too harsh, so you'll have to bleep it out.
Is it the
But
one
yeah,
you is it the one you put on your story a couple of days back?
not that one. This is another one. And the other thing is, some of my friends they ask me that, if you get a job as a drummer, would you take it? Or in the music industry? And my answer to that is absolutely not. That would be the last job I would take it because I'm not good at it. I'm passionate about it. So if someone tells me, become the CEO of, let's say, a musical industry or a musical shop, my answer would be up front, no, I would not enjoy it. I would absolutely hate it. So it's just a passion. The same thing, I'm not sure we've discussed this about obstacle course racing as well. And I think we discussed what if you get a job to build obstacles? I would not take it. I would definitely not take it. It is a passion, but am I good in that? I don't think so. Because what I'm good at is something else. I think the key message, I think if listeners can get it, try to understand what you're good at versus what you're passionate at. People spend a lifetime thinking that, oh, this is my passion. Let me go and follow my career in that. And, eventually you reach a roadblock. Rather, try to understand what you're good at. Try to build your career in that and then have a different passion for it. So yeah, drumming is my passion.
You said two words right now which keep on making me think. Heavy metal and death metal.
Yes.
I thought these two are same thing.
No, heavy metal is like the broad genre. So think of heavy metal as obstacle course race, and then think of, let's say, Spartan Race. And in Spartan Race, think of what's the toughest obstacle. Maybe multi-rig. Imagine doing multi-rig for just doing multi-rig. That is what that metal is. It's a very niche. It's extremely fast. And some of the runners will know that the cadence that we use for running is somewhere between 160 to 180. So in drums, it's called as BPM beats per minute. So we're talking about 250 beats per minute or 280 beats per minute. So it's ridiculously fast.
George, is there a connection between drumming and the way you think? Because rhythm, patterns, timing, those fields are like they inform someone that how to process something and as complex as blockchain.
I 100% think so. I'm so glad you asked that thing. I mean, I do think there's some really strong connection between, death metal, podcasting, and Bitcoin, as well as obstacle course race. And as I said, all of these things are a bit extreme, but in a nice way. You can be extreme, but, things can be really, really bad. And it's the initial phase that people are apprehensive about. Now, if you go to listen to death metal, you'll immediately stop it in just a matter of 5 seconds. But the moment you start understanding the genre, that's when you get hooked onto it. And the same thing regarding Bitcoin. The moment you talk about Bitcoin, people say it is this, it is that. They don't want to get into it. The moment they understand what Bitcoin is, in Bitcoin, they often call it as yellow pill. Oh, sorry, orange pill. So, in the political world, you have red pill and blue pill, which I've asked you so many times. You have red pill, blue pill, but when you say Bitcoin, it is called as orange pill. And you'll hear a lot of podcasters saying, now, I've been orange pilled by this person, which is now I'm only a Bitcoin guy. So, that is one part of Bitcoin. And the same thing goes with heavy metal. I think our listeners should check out a band called Black Sabbath, which has literally changed my life and probably probably millions of people's lives. You listen to the band, you just get hooked onto it. And the same thing, I mean, is with obstacle course race as well, isn't it? The first time when we did obstacle course race, I'm pretty much sure we thought we are not going to do it anymore again. But after that, you just get hooked onto it. You try to get deeper in understanding how to work on these obstacles. So I think the moment you pass through that initial stage, that's when you get hooked onto all three of them. And it's kind of addictive. I think all three of them are addictive, isn't it? Drumming is addictive. But according to me, it's in this order. Drumming first, second is Bitcoin, third is maybe Spartan racing, tough modern obstacle course race. Just passing through that initial stage.
Thank you for that understanding. George, I know we both are running obstacle course races, but not as you said before that we are just putting our 40-50%. We are not running as a pro runners and all that.
Yeah,
So I remember that whenever we are doing the training for Spartan race, or if I need to do a train for Spartan race, I may not put my full in that. I may not put full energy in that race because we know we are going to do just for fun, just to cross the finish line, as we are only addicted to that. So how does it feel like physically, mentally, when you are behind the drum kit? Because I know when we are at the finish, at the start line, our energy is so high. And we are
yeah.
like, okay, we are going to conquer all the obstacles within minutes. So same thing behind the drum kit. How is everything flowing?
Behind getting into the drum kit, I mean, and this is something which I think I'm the only person who does it. I do a bit of meditation, which we'd love to talk about because one thing which I tend to do is, before getting into recording a podcast, even today, I do a very specific meditation, which is roughly around 12 to 18 minutes. The same thing goes even before I sit on the drum kit. I do a bit of meditation. When I sit on the drum kit, I mean, unfortunately, it is number based as opposed to playing it for passion. So when you're playing drums, there are certain rhythms I have to follow. So it is more of a number based game. So you do these exercises for 2 minutes, you do it for 8 minutes, 16 minutes. So the first 10, 15 minutes, it is kind of like a warm up when you do obstacle course race or when you go to the gym, we do the first 10 few minutes warm up, isn't it? So the first 10 or 12 minutes is just the warm up. So the first 10, 18 minutes is ridiculously boring. After that, you just go with the flow. That's when the smile kicks in. Like the same thing when you do for the GoPro, when we adopt a post face with a big broad smile. The same thing happens when I'm playing drums. That's when the happiness kicks in. So when I sit behind the drum kit, the first 18 to 20 minutes is a bit serious. Try to understanding the timing. Something similar to when we do warm up, and then it's just passionate. Then you go and listen. Just play out of the feeling. Just play what you feel like.
So, George, a person who already have two big things in him:
Mhm.
podcast for Bitcoin and blockchain, and the second is the drum, and that also death metal
Yeah,
inside the heavy metal brand. So, why will a person go for the third thing, which is obstacle course racing? And for people who don't know about what is it, I would like you to brief something about what is OCR and why the person will go for this third thing, as you mentioned it, it's for your work-life balance.
yep. I mean, when you talk about obstacle course race, Spartan race, tough mudder, there's a see, even right now when I'm talking, I'm just smiling just a little bit. And if you actually go to the actual course, I've seen people, I very specifically remember, I mean, when I'm taking GoPro and when I see certain obstacles, I see some people, they make some really strong face that they're going to smash the obstacle. Whereas me, I'm just smiling and I'm just laughing. I'm not saying that I'm better than them. But for me, that part is adventurous, it's kind of fun. It is more adventurous, I would say. And you can always see me smiling when I'm doing obstacle. I've even fallen down quite a few times, and rather than being upset or I'm just smiling, he did it actually capture it on GoPro. So the why is, just because it's fun, it's adventurous, and it just adds up to the whole work-life balance, isn't it? Because the podcasting thing which I do, it's a bit technical. So just to give a breather, a break from that, if you do, let's say, obstacle course race, you just forget about it. Your mobile phone, we hardly take a mobile. At least I don't take my mobile phone because I just keep it in the back first. So depending on the race, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, no mobile phone, just having fun with nature. And the window to do obstacle courses, unfortunately, in UAE is relatively short, isn't it? You're looking at just maybe 5 to 6 months. So obstacle course race, we don't do it during summertime. We only do it during those 5 months. But I think we have done almost all the obstacle course race, and some of them we often do it twice as well.
Yep.
And I mean, am I right in saying there's nothing compares after you cross the finish line when you do the fire jump? The
That's
feeling
true
over there.
because I remember my first race and when the fire jump was done and that metal piece was on my chest,
Yeah,
that was the feeling. I I
exactly.
I literally thought that okay, everything I suffered, the bruises, the scratches, the blood was all for that finish line and the feeling.
Yeah. Can I just say something? I mean, the feeling that you have at the finish line. Now, multiply that by maybe 50 times or 100 times. That is what you get when you listen to death metal. I'm literally saying 50 times. So I go for some of these gigs. So the 2 hour period, imagine the feeling that you have after crossing that line. It's the same feeling that you have when you're going for a heavy metal or a death metal gig, but multiply that by 50 times. There is nothing that compares to that feeling. Absolutely nothing at all.
George, you said OCR is your something which related to your work life balance, right?
Yeah.
For work life balance, people choose a spa day. People choose
Yes.
to go out with their puppies or to go out with the dog. So why climbing the walls, taking that high, taking that atlas carry balls, and jumping on the fire, run through the mud? What does that say about you?
It tells me about the adventurous part of it. And more importantly, I mean, I think we would agree to this. The moment you sign up for any of these events, what happens is the month before that and a couple of weeks before that, that's where we get a life in proper balance, isn't it? You try to go to the gym once, probably twice a day. You try to focus on your diet as well. So it is not just about, doing that particular OCR event, but even the weeks before that, probably a couple of months before that, you start to plan things. You want to reduce your weight, you want to focus on your diet. So it isn't just about that event, it is the weeks that precedes before that. I think that's one of the reasons why, the moment you see a date, we go ahead and sign up for it. But that's when the preparation begins. And that is what gets you off the couch and helps you to go to the gym, or you can just skip the gym for one day. And you know me, I mean, I'll go to the gym sometimes twice, few days, even 3 times in the gym. But the reason the other thing, every time I go to the gym, I always listen to podcasts at 2x the speed. So it's kind of hitting two birds in one stone. So you're doing your workout and then you're also listening to podcasts. And I only listen to work related podcasts, mostly about Bitcoin or blockchain related podcasts.
George, today you have said something couple of times, and that is meditation. And I
Yes.
ask you as well, that if this podcast could change something and one thing for one person, you said It could be meditation. And that surprised me coming from a person who is into death metal, who is into Bitcoin, blockchain, and then OCR. Where does this meditation fit in all of this?
I think meditation fits in each and every aspect of it. I mean, and what I do is, there is a specific hertz of music. It's kind of like, how the music is created. So there's 520 hertz, 528 hertz of music. So what I do is I listen to 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 9 minutes. We're talking about 18 minutes before recording a podcast. Or every time I don't think so. I've done any podcast recording without listening to that. And what I really suggest, someone to do is, let's say if they're confused and they are a bit nervous, if they're recording any podcast, and if you are talking about something technical and not sure about these points, just go and listen to the meditation. And surprisingly, when you're on the mic, all of these points automatically kicks in. The same thing goes even before playing drums. I'll do a bit of meditation. This very same thing I listen to 3 minutes, 6 minutes, nine. It goes back to the law of attraction, I mean, which we often talk about, 369. So I do that, and only then, I don't think so I've done a single drum practice session without doing the meditation. And the same thing regarding obstacle course races. Well, I mean, because we catch our bus, or rather, we go by car sometimes at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, isn't it? Certain times even 3 o'clock. After a shower, I think I have not missed a single point where I've not taken any meditation. And it just keeps you active. And the fact is, I mean, we are getting old. So if you listen to that meditation, it just recharges your body, and you're back to doing what you want to do.
If you don't mind, George, I would ask you something that what does your meditation looks like? What does your meditation practice looks like? The real version, not the ideal one. If you can tell us
No,
something about over
yeah,
here.
yeah, the real version what I do. So I'll give you a classic example, I mean, and I always give this example. I've interviewed one of the OGs of Bitcoin, and he's a technical nerd. He's like a technical nerd, and I don't know coding or anything. And I was nervous. I was really nervous because he's a very famous guy. He's working for Glassnode, one of the biggest companies in the world of Bitcoin. And I was like, I've prepared all the questions, and I did the meditation. So what I do is, when I do the meditation, I'm just saying that while I'm doing the meditation, whatever I have to do during the podcast, words would automatically kick in. So let's say if I'm recording an episode, the first 3 minutes, okay, the podcast is going absolutely smooth and fun. I'm talking about it in present tense, and then I just fall asleep. I put an alarm, and the alarm wakes me up. And the moment I start talking, all of these points kick in. And that same thing happened to that interview as well. And at the interview, the guy actually said, "Thanks, George. I was surprised. I learned quite a few things from you." And I was like, "Oh, so one of the OGs has learned something from me." So that was kind of like a moment I thought, okay, maybe I should continue doing that for other aspects also. And the same thing goes with drums also. So when I'm playing drums, I'm just meditating that, okay, I'm doing the warm up absolutely spot on. There's no ache. Surprisingly, I mean, I'm not sure if I've said this to anyone. I've been injured in doing obstacle course race only once. That was during the Tough Mudder where I broke my finger. But while playing drums, I've been injured many times. There's been a time where I couldn't walk for almost a week. I might have not even told you about that, which I think we talk every day, twice or thrice. But yeah, my left leg was hammered really bad. So the death metal drumming is kind of tough. But yeah, so what I do is the 520 hertz, and I visualize what I want to do in the present tense.
George, what I know about you most of the time that your tasks, your to-do list, you disciplined all these things and you always tell me, take a power nap. Take a power
Yeah.
nap for 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 9 minutes, which you just mentioned about right now. And also you always told me that keep a task of 20 minutes, then leave it, then again 20 minutes and then leave it. Tell me something about how are you managing all these things?
I mean, the reason I manage all these things is because I do work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I know people will say, oh, that's rubbish. But if you actually do it, it actually works. And this goes back to the co host, before I used to go live on LinkedIn. I keep telling him also the same thing. Let's not do anything on Saturday, Sunday. But he does a lot of these things. So when you take that break, I mean, what happens is when you start, you're fully motivated, you're charged up, you're focusing more on what you have to do. So I think taking a break is so important, especially as we are getting older and with so much of social media around. It is important that we take a break, come back fully charged up, do your work, then take a break again. I know it sounds a bit easier to say it, but if you actually do it, it does actually work.
George, you are doing
It,
podcasting on LinkedIn, right?
Mhm.
I just
uh,
launched mine. I
yeah.
just launched mine right now. So even when we spoke today in the morning earlier, what is the one thing you know about podcasting that most people get completely get it wrong? Or when they want to start a podcast, what things they could keep in mind?
There are two things I would suggest. The first one, it is the 80-20% rule. I mean, 80% research, 20% is your actual action. I think spending a lot of time doing research, and you can literally break it down in terms of, 80-20. It is called as the Pareto law. And the same thing applies, even for a gym, if you check, even for obstacle course race. Majority of the work is done during the training, isn't it? So, regarding podcasting, if you're, let's say, releasing any episode, make sure you spend a lot of time doing research in terms of, let's say, if you're an interviewing a guest or if you're doing a solo episode, spend at least 80% of the time researching it as opposed to, spending time in editing it, which we do end up spending a lot of time in editing it, isn't it? Or setting up the cameras. I think if you spend 80% of the time doing a lot of research, then, the job becomes easy. And this goes back to the interview that I talked about regarding the Bitcoin OJ. I did do a lot of research and it went pretty smooth. And I think the same thing is applicable for anything else as well. The second thing is, I mean, for podcasting, I do tend to have an event every month where I talk about how to do podcasts. Lately what I'm doing is I'm doing a podcast with AI as a co-host. Gemini has this feature where you can actually go and co-host the episode with them, and surprisingly it is really really good, and the number of listens have actually increased as well. So doing that is something really really insightful. Now the second advice what I'd say is consistency. I think I've helped people set up quite a lot of podcasts. After a few weeks and months, they just give up. But being consistent. So I think you plan to release it every Tuesday, which I think is great. As long as you continue doing it every Tuesdays, probably for 6 months, maybe a year, maybe even 2 years, or longer than that. I think consistency is what speaks a lot. One example I like to share, I mean, if we're running short of time, is there's a guy on YouTube called as the MMA Guru. I mean, I really urge your listeners to check it out because when he initially started, his first maybe 200 or 300 episodes, there were only 6 people listening to it or 8 people listening to it. And right now, per month, he's earning close to 100 to $200,000 per month. And his podcast setup is exactly what mine is behind. Just the most basic setup, the most basic setup. And people who, in case they're watching MMA or UFC, some of the UFC athletes now, and I'm talking about the world champions, they want to be on his podcast. The things have changed. And there was a recent event where UFC actually said, rather than doing an interview with ESPN, it makes sense to do an interview with this guy, the MMA guru. So, have being consistent, even if the numbers
George,
are not showing up.
something I learned from you. Actually, I would say that I learned what exactly that things mean. Law of attraction,
Yes.
manifestation. I remember during the COVID times when we were running down at Mamzar, and you used to told me that, bro, law of attraction, manifestation. And that helped me out a lot. And that really helped me out a lot in those situations. Even now, that is getting me out of some situations, that is helping me out in some situations. So, meditation, law of attraction, manifestation, and visualization,
Yes.
all four you sum up. How you are consistent in that? People, I would say a word, dhyana linga, mostly heard by Sadguru or some gurus specifically. And then Vipassana, which we spoke in the morning, and Samir
Yeah.
GP in the first episode told about it. And I think so you checked at dhamma.org as well in Rasul Khaimah.
Yeah, I was checking the dates,
So,
when the dates
so
were
is
available.
that all things, if I say law of attraction, manifestation, meditation, dhyana linga, it's also same meditation, and Vipassana, that is to get away from distraction. Are all these things similar and connected to each other?
It is connected to each other, I mean, and we both know the two words, I am. As long as you say the word I am followed by whatever you say, that's what you are, isn't it? You can say I am sad. And how law of attraction works is, you get a lot of sad things. Let me ask you another question. I mean, and this is more connected to law of attraction. I know it's your podcast, but I mean, you tell me, who's more likely, whose prayers are more likely to be answered? a rich person's prayer asking for more money, or a poor person who's begging for more money, whose prayer is most likely to be answered? And the
To
same
have a
question can go on.
stronger faith,
Who is more likely to have stronger faith?
whoever has
Let,
stronger faith,
let's
or
take
whoever.
Elon Musk, for instance. Elon Musk is a trillionaire. If he wants to have more money, what are the chances he can have more money as opposed to, let's say, someone who's struggling with finances? Who's do you think is more likely to have a lot of more money?
It's a very technical question. Very.
It's the feeling up part of it. So the feeling part of it, Elon Musk, I think, will get more money because he's in a state of mind where he's accepting money, whereas person who's struggling, he'll be thinking about the problems. It's the state of mind. And the same thing, let's switch instead of money. What about health? I mean, let's say a person who's extremely health and fit, he's praying and saying, let my health be excellent, versus someone who's struggling with health, has a lot of disease. Who do you think is most
I'll
likely
answer
to
this
have
question.
healthy life? Yeah.
I'll state this question like this. As you said, whoever is accepting it.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you have opened your doors to accept the abundance, it will
Exactly.
come
Yeah.
to you. It will flow to you.
Yes.
And if you are closing the doors with a with a negativity and with a stress and
Yeah.
with a thinking that it's never coming to me, I'm still praying it that it should come to me, but it's never coming to me. The God is never giving these things to me. So I think that will never come.
Exactly. And this goes back
Because
to I
see,
am.
because the
Yeah.
universe is full of abundance.
Yes.
There are millions and millions and billions of people in universe who
Yeah.
are asking for abundance from, and he's giving it. He's giving to
True.
every single person. He's not saying no, but
Yes.
he's just saying. I remember the scripture Steve Harvey says in his show, "You have not because you ask not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Until and unless you ask." See, I'll tell you something. It's mentioned in my screen as well. You have not cause you ask not.
Oh yeah, that's a nice one.
So
Yeah.
I'm open to abundance. I'm open to all
Yeah.
the manifestation I'm doing it. I'm open to law of attractions. My doors are open for the plenty of abundance, the blessings. And I start my day with the prayers and meditation, and then with the I am affirmations every
Yes.
single day. It's not that you are doing it for 1 month and it will come to you on the 31st day, on the 32nd day.
Yeah.
It will
And it
come
is
to
the
you.
feeling you're supposed to be having when you're asking, I am.
Definitely. You have to be in the present tense
Yes.
because the kinetic energy that flows to you,
Correct.
and then only everything is possible for that.
Absolutely. And the same thing happens, when you're talking about Bitcoin, when you're recording the podcast. If there is anything complicated, I just say, you know what? Everything is taken care of. Because Bitcoin, some of these concepts are extremely technical. Everything is taken care of. The same thing, during Spartan Race as well. If I think I mean that my hand got injured. Yeah, I broke my finger into two.
And still, then also you were doing the obstacle.
No, it's in fact after that I started doing the obstacle twice. So
Yeah.
tough mud, I started doing it twice. It's just a matter of I am, just pushing that barrier. And this is where meditation helps. Taking a break from things actually help as well.
George, one question, uh, not the serious one. It's like out of this thing. You have done podcast, Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto, meditation, law of attraction. Even you are a big MMA fan, I think so, because whenever I ask you for running in the morning or going mountains in the morning,
Yeah,
you're like, no, bro, today's a big fight going on. So
Sundays.
I'm not
So
coming. Sunday,
yeah,
let's
so
talk
Sundays
about
early
Sunday.
morning is where
So that's
UFC
the thing.
takes place.
So
Yeah, the fight.
tell me something. What is that one thing that completely embarrassingly beyond you? The
Oh, I
one
mean,
place where all the discipline and passion and energy completely falls apart in George. You have
okay,
to
now,
answer this in an honest way.
okay, I'll be completely honest. I mean, because you're a good friend of mine. So in my podcast, roughly around 3 months ago, I did get an email, and the email said, we love your podcast. We'd love for you to come and do a presentation. And I was so happy, I sent them an email. Sure. Finally, I found out it was for a women's event. And they were listening to my podcast and they thought I was a female because my voice, I think this is can also say that, it sounds a bit like, and I was like, oh man, and I'm the guy who listens to death metal, which is, about brutal, it has got all the thing. I'm the guy who does obstacle course. They said, now I am a 40-year-old guy and someone thinks I'm a woman just because of my voice. So I had to say, and I always start by saying, "Hey everyone, this is George from the Blockchain DXB podcast." They thought the name is Georgie, so they were thinking that it is a female. So that was my embarrassing moment.
George, thank you so much for the conversation today. And one thing which I could tell what people can take away from this conversation is that if you are good at one thing, so it's not necessary that you cannot do other things. The
Yeah.
doors are open. He did Bitcoin and blockchain, and then podcast, then drumming. He is a speaker, obstacle course races, meditation, law of attraction, fan of MMA. All things are here in him. He is building his life. So it's worth taking something from this podcast and this conversation that don't stuck on one thing. Not necessary to adapt that thing as an passion. As you mentioned, that passion and addiction both are two different things. Take these things, the meditation practice that somehow holds all of it together.
Yes.
And that's not chaos, that's completely a human being. And all of George things I will be putting down in the show notes, especially about Bitcoin and Blockchain DXB podcast with over 1000 something episodes. And if you want to know anything about crypto, anything about blockchain, he can teach you. He can make you understand exactly not to invest or something. He won't convince you for thing, but he will at least make you understand what exactly the Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency is. Are all
I
these
only
things
talk.
similar?
Yeah, yeah. I only talk about the
Are all these
technology.
things
I don't give
similar?
investment advice here.
That's what. Yeah. Are all these things similar or these are different? Connecting the dots. He will make you understand what exactly these things are. So to everyone listening out there, you are allowed to be more than one thing. Actually, you are supposed to be. All of George's detail, including the Blockchain DXP podcast, are mentioned below in the show notes. And I'll see you guys in the next episode of Everyday Conversation with another guest. See you all. Good night.
Thanks,
Ciao,
Amin.
bro.
Thanks for having me. Have a nice one.